chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to College Volleyball Weekly Men's Top 20, episode 306, week 14 recap, week 15 preview. And on screen, as always, got Brad Rothstadter of UC San Diego, Jay Hosick of George Mason, Dan Friend of Lewis, and Theo Edwards of CSUN. You know, we're going to try and get another coach on here before the end of the year, because that was one of the comments kept getting. It's not that they're sick of the guys on the screen, just want to see some new faces. So I got to reach out to the two that got dropped consistently and see if they'd be willing to come on a Monday morning. But
I need a sub next week anyway, so I won't be able to make it, guys. So
yeah. And we need to stop calling it CSUN, start calling it Northridge State
or Nordhoff State.
Yeah, too old school. Northridge State. We're throwing it out there. I'm making it happen.
I like it, Jay.
Okay. We're gonna make San Fernando State University sweatshirts for next week.
Yes.
So we're gonna go a little different format this week because of the busy weekend. Easter Sunday, and then I had two mistresses this weekend: beach volleyball all day, Friday, Saturday, and then men's volleyball. Like literally threw off the shorts and trunks and the tee and threw on the nice button-down, nice pants, and got on the broadcast. So it was a very busy weekend. And a little hint, if you look at my backdrop, I forgot to drop it. Tomorrow, the AVCA Player of the Year semifinalists are going to be announced, which I was recording late last night. So, hey, here we go. Little Easter eggs up to what's coming up next. But
no rest for the wicked.
Exactly, for sure. But some important news, I just happened to catch. I wanted to say congratulations to BYU head coach Sean Olmstead, win number 209, program record. So, Sean's always a good one to chat with on screen and love seeing his Cougars play. And, he's well-deserved volleyball family and great conversations. It's just a fun time whenever you see Sean Olmstead. But 209 wins, quite the record. Any gentlemen want to comment on Sean and the Cougars?
I'll be honest with you. I would have thought the number would have been much higher with some of the coaches that have been there over the years and how long they've stayed. So congratulations to Olmstead.
Yep.
Yeah. Congrats. It's awesome. So.
Yeah, it's huge, man. I think, there's so much history in that program, and every time the torch is passed, you don't want to be the guy who drops it. And he's been able to keep it strong and has done a great job. So congrats to him.
Theo, where are you at? How many wins you got, Theo?
I honestly have no clue. It's funny, right? As Rob was stating
are you guys like 3 years in between you, like both of you each? Is this? I can't remember now.
Yeah, I think
season
Brad and I are
four
both on the same, at least years wise.
Yeah, we're about the same, I'd imagine. Right in the same ballpark.
Jay's like 37.
I have zero clue what number I'm at. Plus, you got to call.
I just meant 37 years.
and I think you got to mix in. Do you have to mix in the Santa Cruz days from way back in the day? I mean, I don't know how many wins I have.
I gotta go look Jay up now. I'll look it up after this show.
Be
I
careful.
You don't really pay attention until somebody recognizes. So it's got to be big enough that guys like Jay and Dan would actually have the recognition.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been hanging around a while, so I don't know. I'm chasing Al Skates.
Yeah,
aren't we all?
Actually, Peggy Martin is the winningest coach. It's a women's Division II coach. She's, I don't know, 1,300, 1,200, something like that. Like, yeah, not
quiet all of a sudden.
So,
yeah. Well, we had a lot of action in week 14, and we're gonna do a little different. We're gonna let the coaches panel pick on what we're gonna discuss this week, because right now it's playoff implication, tournament implication time, and a lot of discussion about at-larges and teams because of their shortage of matches or the quality of their schedules. All that stuff is coming up, and I love the chatter everywhere I'm getting it, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm just tell the teams to win. That's the easiest solution.
Yep.
So, we'll go. Yeah, I'm gonna go look at my screen here, and you guys can do a random picks, kind of like the roulette here. We'll go with Dan. Go ahead and pick the first match we want to talk about.
Well, I mean, certainly I'll have one, but we got to talk about Loyola, period. Like Loyola played Lindenwood and McKendree. And this was kind of pivotal in terms of where kind of the middle upper part of the pack's at. So Lindenwood came into us, and we were fortunate enough to kind of, sweep them in three. I think they're still figuring out without Brendan Luthane on the court, but we certainly served well and did a nice job. And then Loyola played McKendree that first night. Loyola was really steady on both those matches from a serve receive and serving standpoint at home. I think certainly Fab was hitting 350, I think, in the Lindenwood match and 400 in one of the McKendree match. And so just really steady for those guys. And Ryan McElliott back in the lineup, doing a really solid, nice job. Howard's holding down the forward on the back pin. And they're just consistent out of the middle, too. They got a couple, whether it's Aiden Klein's been there all year, but whether it's I forgot the big, is he Netherlands? Yeah, what's his name? Brad, you probably have it in front of you. I can't think
Owen something.
Yeah. So he's done a nice job for them, but 2 sweeps for them at home puts them in a position where Ball State and Purdue's coming up on the road for Loyola. They're hunting at that at large or that MEVA bid, and I think they put themselves in a good spot on that last weekend. And Lindenwood, unfortunately, where they were in that spot, is now climbing behind a little bit from that standpoint. So, and then ultimately McKendree coming to our place, and Bryce for them on the opposite had an unreal night, 30 kills. He was fantastic. And even our guy Cam had 20 kills, but he just couldn't slow him down, and we were putting hands in front of him, but he had a great night for those guys, and those guys came out with a win at our place. So McKendree comes out with a split. We come out with a split. Lindenwood's 0-2, and then Loyola's sitting in a pretty good spot. But it kind of gives a recap, on those 4 matches there that were, I think, key in some, pivotal races. So,
well, Dan, let me ask you this, because at the Lindenwood match, Brendan Luthane made an appearance in the final set. Is that going to be an impact?
I don't know. I'm sure it is an impact. I think if he can get healthy, and we had this comment last week about leery about talking about injuries when you don't really know what's going on. Do you know what I mean? So I saw that, but I didn't see what he accomplished. I just know that he's probably certainly working to get back. It's an important piece for them, and if he can find a way to be healthy by they go in this last stretch, and then he gets the postseason play. That'll be an important piece for them. He's a great passer, great player, he's got a great arm, and certainly is an impact for those guys.
Yeah. All right, panelists.
Yeah, you take a look at the top 2 in the MEVA, it's Ball State and Loyola, and everybody else is a few matches below. And, we've seen all year that teams can pick teams off at any given moment. So it still makes it quite interesting, regardless of who's on top and who's not. But hosting seems to be a major factor of a team being a little bit more crisp, maybe a little bit more ready to go. Being on the road is always a few percentage points lower, not in your favor. But, the fact remains, I think when you look at any championship level team, and there's probably 5 or 6 teams in the country that are championship level teams, they've got a number of guys that they can rely upon to be able to get it done. And if all of them are firing on all cylinders, I mean, it's really, really good volleyball to watch. You look at the next 10 to 15 teams, and they have one player that they use to get out of trouble, or the one that we can lean on. If that player is not healthy, then all of a sudden you got to start working a little bit harder all around the dial. And that seems to be the case for a lot of guys, especially with Lindenwood. They have Luthane in there. They're a much different story. Without him, they've struggled a little bit. So if he can get healthy, I don't know if he is or not. I'm with Dan in the same boat. I don't know. So I'm not commenting one way or the other, but if he's healthy, Lindenwood could get back up in speed, and then all of a sudden they become dangerous again. But, when you have 3 or 4 of the guys on your team that are role players, and then all of a sudden they're forced to step up to carry the load, it becomes a much different story. So I think that's going to be the case going down the line for a lot of teams in a lot of conferences. I think Ball State is, if they lose in the MEVA, I think they are in the conversation for the at-large. If they win, I don't know if Loyola would be in that conversation as well. They could be. Dan would probably have way more information on that than I would, but it's then you've got two teams that, if they make it to the finals, could argue to be that at large, which is good for the MEVA.
I think Lindenwood's still in that combo a little bit, and it's just I think it'll be interesting to see how they play out. You know what I mean? So, but I want to rebuttal Jay a little bit, like Kraft and sorry, why did the setter's name just popped out of my head?
Solomon.
Like, and they're middle, like systematically, they've got. I mean, he's having a phenomenal year. Solomon is, and Kraft is having a phenomenal year, and their middles do a great job. And I sometimes think, like, you miss a piece that's like systematically doing some things, and how's the other piece plug in? Do you know what I mean? And so, like, and sometimes that can kind of throw. You look at us with OG. Like, we lose OG, and he's a super important piece, and it's taken us a while to kind of figure it out. You know what I mean? And so you have this piece to kind of figure out, and how does it play systematically into what's going on? And so, and yeah, I think maybe the top 5 teams, those pieces are more readily available if a guy kind of pops out. But if Zach Rama's popping out or Sean Kelly's popping out, and they got a couple guys behind him, but are they as good as those two guys sitting in that role right there? Do you know what I mean? And so, like, and I think those are always just tough. Do you know what I mean? Kyoto are like Wade for Tratinsky. I mean, both those guys could play at a high level. So you get situations where like that, and it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. It's not about could those next guys stepping up be effective. It's how fast. Yeah. And that seems to be the question mark. I mean, look at Northridge. Phillips didn't play this weekend, and you had a guy playing in that position. He's not a bad player. I mean, he did some nice things, but is he at that level yet that Phillips was at? And I think that becomes the question is, Luthane is good, and the next guy behind him is not bad, but is that next guy going to be able to step in that much faster? And so that's where the interesting piece comes into play.
Yeah, looking at the MEVA, you have, I mean, really a lot of injuries within a lot of key components throughout the course of the year. Really every team but Ball State saw some major piece suffer an injury and be out for a period of time. And then like Loyola's done a good job of kind of managing their injury situations with McElliott and with Sosa as well, to where now they're in the driver's seat, right? They'll get Purdue Fort Wayne, and then they get Ball State. And if they win both of those, they're the number 1 seed. And they're hosting for the MEVA, and I think they're in the driver's seat for the MEVA playoffs there, which I think is a testament to Shane and the crew. And really, like, I think we've talked about a lot, but just having 3 really good passers like they have out on the court consistently, you can do a lot of damage. It helps that Shelley and Fabukovic are pretty good attackers too, on top of that. So I think that'll be interesting to see that Loyola Ball State matchup. And then on the Lindenwood side of things, I think, you get Tendy, you get Brendan Luthane playing in one set. I think that's a great sign. And yeah, he's taped up and has a little sleeve and bionic leg, but I think that's, projecting out 2 weeks from now, I think that gives him at least a few days of training, maybe another match to get his legs under him, going into the conference tournament. And I'd imagine that's where the focus is how do we get him ready? How do we get our team ready to be at our best for those 3 matches in the conference tournament? So getting some experience there. So, but yeah, I agree. I think it's really, to me, I think it's Ball State, Loyola that are still in the mix for that at-large spot. And then depending on how the conference tournament plays out, I think that conversation could continue for both of them if they end up in the MEVA finals.
Yeah, these guys did such a great job of hitting all that stuff on the head. I don't have a ton to add. I think, looking at Loyola, it just seems to me like they're firing on all cylinders at the right moment in the year. The first ball side out numbers are absolutely through the roof. And, I think when you're doing that as a team, especially a team that's been scouted, what these guys are going to do. And they're just so in system that they're just really, really tough to stop. And then the bummer for me, we've been kind of all talking about Lindenwood. They're the dark horse. They've been the dark horse all year. And it's just a shame to see them deal with an injury like that to such a crucial, older, mature leader type of player. But here's the other thing is if they end up coming back, or I should say Luthane ends up coming back and ends up being a matchup for one of these top teams, late in the playoffs, in tournament time. Oh, that's not a team that you want to see when he's back on the floor. So it does keep things a little bit interesting from that perspective.
Yeah, that would be That would be Dan's team in that first round of the playoffs if it started today, right? 3-6.
Sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey,
Yeah, Dan. I hope you're listening to Theo.
yeah, Brad, here's an interesting question, and I think you kind of answered it. Like, if you're going to have an injury on your team, nobody wants any injury. Do you know what I mean? But like, I think Loyola, it's interesting. The setter's always a tough one, and I thought their backup setter came in, and he did a nice job. Do you know what I mean? And Sosa was there, but like, what position do you want to lose, depending on what your other positions are? And you said it, Loyola's passing core has done such a great job between a junior and a senior, two juniors and a senior on the passing side, that creates what Theo, like the first ball side out stuff with I don't know. It's an interesting, like if I had to pick, and your team makeup probably makes a big difference in that, but yeah.
Yeah, and then you have the personalities too, right? And even just looking at Loyola, I would imagine, from the outside perspective, where you lose a setter like McElliott, that stretch was probably a little bit harder on the coaching staff. And Smits Van Ooyen came in and did a great job of steadying the ship through a tough part of non-conference schedule. And then when you lose Sosa, who is coming in as a transfer and kind of just got there, to where it might be a little bit smoother of a transition just from a, scheming, planning. And a lot of those guys kind of can go back to what it was like playing without him in those spots. So yeah, it'd be interesting. But I think middle would be the easiest one, right? In theory,
In
it's
theory,
like, all right,
yeah.
it's only 3 rotations.
Right.
So it's the least impact in that sense.
Yeah.
Well, I could tell you because we did it this week. When you lose a guy who's your number 1 point scorer, I think the dynamic of the team changes quite a bit.
I'm with you, Theo. Yeah,
Jay knows that one.
Yeah.
Well, I think just from a volleyball perspective, right? Trying to make up 4 to 7 kills per set on average, and depending on what your lineup was before, did you have the personnel that could do that, right? Like, could you plug in a new guy and then keep everything else the same and make it up? Interesting.
Well,
All
great
3 of you
breakdown.
guys know what that this year, unfortunately.
Yep.
Well, we haven't spoken a lot about Ball State, but I look at the way they finish their season. They see Dan on Thursday, I believe it is, and then they finish with Shane and the Loyola Ramblers on Saturday coming up. So I still think there's still a lot that has to be settled here in these final 2 weeks. Loyola could sneak up, pull off an upset, and then you have to go down to head-to-head, point, all that stuff. That makes it so much fun.
If Loyola wins, they'll have the tiebreaker because they swept Ball
do they?
State earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's really crazy, though, is Dan could end up making up almost 3 spots, end up in the 3 seed, and still play Lindenwood. Lindenwood bounces to 6. MEVA's tough, man. It's brutal.
Just gonna try and play on Thursday, guys. That's all.
Dan's butthole just went.
All right. Who wants to jump on the next one? Next match to discuss from week 14.
Jay, you want to go, and then we'll bring it west.
Yeah, there was only a couple matches that really were anything. Penn State is just on a roll going through conference. They went down to Charleston this weekend. And Charleston's been one of those teams where they've been 50-50, right? One night they're maybe not so good. The next night, all of a sudden, they're on fire. And they've done that all year long. They've split their weekends. I expected them to do that possibly this weekend. Unfortunately, that was not the case from my perspective. It wasn't necessarily from Penn State's perspective. But Charleston just seems to be one of those teams that if they can get a couple more guys to fire on all cylinders, they'll be pretty good. Penn State just is really steady. They got a few guys that they can lean on. They got Harvey. They got Luoma, they got Rose, they got Merck. Their setters have been kind of working a little bit dual time here and there recently, but it's just a solid crew. They're not wowing you. They're not the Penn State of old where it's just, firing on all cylinders from everywhere. It's just they're kind of just diligent and getting after it, and they're doing some work. So Penn State puts themselves in a really good position for this weekend. Right now they're 8-0, and we are in second place at 6-2. We have Princeton coming up this past weekend. We had Harvard came into our gym, and it was our alumni weekend, and a bunch of the old guys came back and saw their team playing, and got a chance to hang out with them after the match on Saturday night for a little bit. But we're doing some nice things too, and 2-3-0 sweeps against Harvard, who, when you look at their roster, I know somebody on Volley Talk had posted about Harvard, talking to their AD about getting more players on their roster or giving them more spots. I don't think people understand how hard it is to recruit to that place. Princeton has, some saved slots, if you will, where they get a chance to get a player that maybe is not quite at the academic eligibility of the other general students. I'm not saying it can be a 3.0 and get into Princeton, but you don't need quite the stringent 4.5 and above to be able to, sniff it, right? So Princeton has the ability to do that. I'm not sure Harvard does. In Harvard, compared to Princeton, maybe not the athletic prowess in terms of their athletic teams, right? I mean, Harvard's won the EIVA. They won one a handful of years ago, but they're always just kind of that team that gets a few pretty nice players over the years. But it's not cheap to go to school there. It's a tough school to get into, and Brian does a great job of trying to recruit kids that can play. It's not like Brian's sitting on his hands and just going, I'll take whatever I get every year. But this year they've had some injuries. They had a low roster number to start with, and they came into our gym, and on Saturday they only had 8 guys that could play, or 9 guys that could play. And they only traveled with 10, and it just was really, really tough for them. But they played really well, probably the best I've seen them play all year long on Saturday, and took it to us. We won 32-30 in that first set, and then we kind of handled things from that point on. But they're not a bad team. And I know Brian will try to fix that moving forward. He's got some roster management things he's got to deal with. But, Harvard and Princeton, it's tough. It's tough to recruit. It's tough to get kids in. It's not cheap to go to school, but they both do a good job. So, the only other match that meant anything was Sacred Heart beat Princeton twice. And Princeton is now at the bottom of the EIVA, and right now is looking on the outside in, trying to get into the tournament playoffs. They were in the finals last year, and now they're in the danger of not even making the tournament. So this weekend they're coming to our place, and it's going to be kind of a do or die for them. And Princeton's got some good players on that team, and so they're kind of dangerous. We're definitely not overlooking them just because they're in last place. But if it shapes out the way I want it to, obviously we'll be 8-2 going into that final weekend against Penn State. If we win both, then we host. And if they win one, then it's a matter of what NJIT does, because right now we split with NJIT, but they have the tiebreaker over us by 1 set. So it'll be interesting. These next couple of weeks in the IVA will be fun, and definitely just trying to make sure we put ourselves in a good position.
Excellent breakdown there. Hey, it looks like Penn State finishes out the season with a pair against Sacred Heart, and then closes out the final weekend of play, which is so apropos. Mentor versus mentee matchup, Jay against Pav, and going to be a big weekend for.
It will be. I am honored to be Pav's last regular season matches in his career. Obviously, he's going to go on after that and play other matches, but to be the guy that gets a chance to beat him one last time, get one for the Gipper, if you will. But no, it's a great honor, and I know I'm going to see a lot of alumni in that gym that I've known and coached over the years. It's just going to be a fun time, a fun place. Be a lot of people in that gym, and so it's just going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, when you get
back
back
at Penn State, Jay.
Both of you asked questions at the same time.
Sorry, that matchup's at Penn State.
Yeah, it's at Penn State, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple thousand people there rooting him on.
What'd you get him? I probably can't tell us yet, huh?
I'm not going to tell it, but it's not something corny. And I don't mean that yours was. I just mean,
I think you did. It's okay. I was the first one. That's all right. Yeah, you could have been like,
listen.
hey, you could have been like, it's a little more serious, not as jokey as you had to roll out the word corny. You're already on me this morning. We haven't even got on the video yet.
I know.
Like,
well, listen,
that's all right, buddy.
Listen, if I'm not giving you the business, I don't care about you. You know how that works.
If this wasn't fan friendly, I would tell you to F off, but
Yeah, no. Listen, I think when you retire, I think the gifts that make the person smile are the ones like the canes and the rocking chairs and things like that. There's an old story back in the day, and I may have mentioned already, but when Al Skates retired, Marv Dunphy gave him a picture of a sunset, which I think is appropriate. But no, I got him something a little bit closer to the heart. And I don't want to disclose it here because I want it to be a surprise to Pat, but something that means something to me and something that'll mean something to him. And just get a chance to thank him for all the opportunities and being a part of his program for so many years and get a chance to just see what it's like at the top level so that I can bring that to my next job, which is here at George Mason.
Jay's going to be going for the waterworks. I like it, Jay. That's
if I can make Pav cry a little bit, then I will have won. No, he'll smile, he'll nod, he'll know exactly what it's from. It's from a story a long time ago. So all good.
Darn, and I thought it was gonna be a banana slug named Jay that you're gonna hand him.
No. And I love how people that are making these memes, whoever they are, thank you. That's awesome. I love that you're taking our information and putting it out there. But I love how they equate me with UC Santa Cruz still. Like yes, I'm a proud alum. I love my alma mater and I love my playing days and all the guys I play with. I shudder to think what they think of me after all these years, but that's okay. It's nothing to write home about. But I just love how they still equate me to there, even though I haven't been there for over 22 years. It's pretty funny to me. So.
Well, fans want to talk about anything in the EIVA matches that Jay had mentioned?
No, just the thing with the Harvard volley talk thing. Again, it's, people kind of are have the right to their own opinion, but I think Jay hit a lot of it. Like Brian works really hard, and those are hard institutions to recruit to, and the roster is always going to be a little bit lower, and certainly if you get a couple injuries, if your roster is a little bit lower, it can make it a little bit challenging. So just Brian, know that we support you and think you do a great job. And I know he'll continue to have some great teams there. So
100%. It just to briefly give the fans some perspective. You have to have such a high GPA to even be admitted to Harvard, Princeton, Stanford. Those are the top three in terms of the academic schools in Division I when you look at it. Now you have to whittle down how many of those kids can afford to come to your school. There's the factor that comes into play. How many of those kids are high enough level that if Harvard or Princeton doesn't get them, that Stanford's going to take them. So now you've taken a few more out of that case. And then how do you whittle down? All right, now you got the next group of kids, and Harvard and Princeton do not offer athletic scholarships. So now you got to pay full boat. Now a team like Lewis, a team like Ohio State, a team like, Irvine, whatever, San Diego, whatever. Now all of a sudden they throw a little bit of academic money at you and you're still getting a great education, but now you're paying less money to go play at these places who might have a little bit of a stronger strength of schedule and a little bit more travel, a little bit more fun. I mean, it's a gnarly thing to think about. So yeah, I wish these people would get off Brian's case. Brian's working his ass off at that place.
Yeah. Just look at some of their majors. Yeah, my majors are artificial intelligence at the Harvard Kennedy School. Like, that's impressive in itself.
These guys are going to go save the world someday, and we're worried about the fact that Brian can't put 15 or 16 guys in his gym. Like, come on.
And out-earn us in the first year of play, or the first year they get a job.
Yeah, stop it already. Leave the guy alone.
Well, the one thing I'll say about the EIVA is just a kudos to Charleston and Sacred Heart. I think both those programs have done a pretty nice job considering their standards and their situations of putting themselves in the hunt. And both those teams sitting just under 500 and both fourth and fifth place ahead of Harvard and Princeton. Impressive work by them for sure.
Yep.
Interesting thought here for EIVA Player of the Year. Obviously, if this trend continues and Penn State ends up taking care of George Mason in 2 weeks from now, but does Ryan Merck as Libero be in the mix as Player of the Year would be an interesting thought. Obviously, Sean Harvey's playing really well, but I think that one of the few situations where we could at least see a conversation for Libero.
No,
Jay's not having it.
No, and here's why. And listen, coaches can agree or disagree with me. This is my take. You're not scoring points. I love liberos. They do a great job of keeping you in system if they're that good, which obviously Merck does. They dig a lot of balls, which Merck does, but you're not scoring points. And you cannot equate a team's overall success, in my eyes, to the level of a libero being good, as opposed to, because you got to have guys that can put the ball away. If a guy makes a great pass, but your setter can't set and your hitters can't hit, What's the point?
Ooh, no response. Quiet.
Oh, I have a
Chirping.
response. I mean,
Oh.
I think everybody's always under consideration. Like, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with Jay in the fact that it is hard to, not have that weight, but I think Merck's numbers would have to be off the charts for me. So it's like, hey, I'm going to go look at the passing numbers and see where that is and where the digs per game is. And I'd have to really look at that stuff. And does that weigh more than another guy in a point scoring space? But I'm probably with Brad in the sense that the libero's never out of the picture. There's probably been a couple liberos that could have been considered for national player of the year over the years, but those are pretty far and few between. So yeah, if the guy's special, you at least have to take the glance. You know what I mean? A little bit. So
Well, Dan, let me ask you this, because last year the AVCA awarded the first ever Distinction of Excellence award. Is there any discussion about potentially going to a Libero of the Year award? Because I've seen there's such a huge core of really good Liberos across the nation this year, I feel like.
yeah, but there was last year, if you remember, and so there was a handful that were recognized as honorable mention. The decision for there was a struggle with putting somebody on first team last year for the libero because everybody was really good, but there wasn't like a guy who just blew out the numbers and separated himself like we've had in some past years. So it was really hard between first and second. And people had talked about not even put one on first, but then there was a rule that stated you had to, which I think is a good thing in that sense. But then there were like 6 or 7 that were in honorable mention, which I think will be the same this year. There's a ton of liberos that are in that space, and until you jump into the passing and digging numbers, you won't be able to separate, hey, is this guy first team, second team, and then how did they help their team's performance? And that's kind of what plays into it. But I guess you could talk about that, but I don't think they'll make a separate award, for just libero of the year yet. But if you're wanting me to bring that up, I will bring that
Well, and
up. So,
Nico
the
Paula.
here's the other challenge.
but good, really good. You know what I mean? So,
Well, here's the other challenge. What about all the teams that run a 2 libero system? Now they're splitting the time and getting half the stats, but yet they're both doing great things in their respective positions. Most teams have one libero that does serve receive and one libero that does point scoring time. So you're literally taking away reps from 2 equally guys that can combined make a great libero for your team, right? But
Jay, it's no different than Irvine using 2 setters early in the year, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
There definitely is going to be implications on some year-end awards due to the numbers, right? Just simply you're not setting the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, there could be.
But I agree with Rob. I think there should be some sort of way to honor the libero position because historically they always get the short end of the stick.
well, what's
in the
libero of the year
All-American
different than
selection.
first team All-American? Does that make sense? You're going to have first team American and that same guy becomes libero of the year. How's that a differential for you?
Non-point
I don't know
that
I don't know that it could be an All-American selection. I think it's got to be something that's kind of separate.
I think the difference is, Dan, you're right. You're 100% right. Because there's only one libero, the one libero on the first team All-American is obviously the best libero in the country. And so it's kind of a redundant award. If you had multiple liberos on that first team or second team, then all of a sudden you could argue for a libero of the year.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to start this whole kerfuffle. I was just saying that Penn State's numbers overall,
what was that word?
Ryan Merck, kerfuffle?
Kerfuffle.
Nice. I like that. That's great.
Yeah, I had to step it up.
Way
Rob
above
wasn't using new
EJ's
words.
vocabulary, just so you know. I want to point that out.
I got a UC education. I'm the Ivy League of the West Coast, baby.
But here's what I'm saying. You have Jay? So I'm assuming it'd be Sean Harvey, and then I think your setter would probably be the other guy in contention for EIVA Player of the Year.
Or Aiden Welton.
Aiden Welton, too. He's having a good year. But you have Sean Harvey. He's hitting 300 over the year. I think in most matches, especially in EIVA play, it's probably a little bit higher. Or you have Ryan Merck who's passing. I don't have that up. Don't you know?
I don't know it off the top of my head. You're the
but then you
stat
have
guy.
Ryan Merck, who's digging 80% of his balls, passing 63% in system. And most of the time, Libero's not even going to get a whiff in that conversation. And I think this is one time where I think that Libero should be involved in the conversation. I'm not saying he's no doubt winner of it, but I think it should be in contention and in the debate.
There we go. Great discussion. Now, with all the action in the EIVA, though, it looks like that playoff picture is TBD for the most part from 3 on. Who's hosting? Did you say Penn State's hosting again?
No, that has not been determined yet. The regular season champion will host. If we win out this weekend, we go into Penn State weekend. This has been the first time in a long time that the host university is not decided until the last weekend. And so if we win both, then we will host. If we lose one and win one, then Penn State will host.
Gotcha.
So.
All right. Where do we go from here? I just want to side note here that every single Big West team represented here lost this last week. So,
jeez.
Wow. Lost them both, as a matter of fact. So there's a lot of depression on the screen right now. But Brathia, who wants to jump in?
Yeah, let's talk about Irvine and Hawaii.
Well played, Theo. Well played.
Yeah, I think just in the spirit of volleyball and kind of where the season is at, I thought that was a matchup that probably was going to have some big implications in terms of kind of the Big West setup, but not only that, but obviously also the at-large bids down the road. And looking at Irvine and potentially getting an upset that first night, the double red card saga of just chaos that ensued at the Bren was pretty wild, man. And I thought it was pretty incredible by Hawaii to find a way to win that match. I really felt like there were some times that Irvine was in control and it looked like they were going to be victorious. And Hawaii was resilient. I think Sakanoko, we've been talking about him. His name has come up quite a bit. But between Tread Rosenthal and Sakanoko, I feel like Sakanoko has just been absolutely incredible this year. I thought last year was a little bit of a second-year slump, and he was, although incredibly effective and great, really athletic, I think he dealt with some injuries and some things of that nature. And just feel like this year has been just an exceptional season for him so far. And I thought he was a huge difference maker for them down the stretch against Irvine. So Irvine ends up pulling out these two, and Hawaii ends up pulling out these two, and I think this is probably a tell of where Hawaii is going to end up at the end of this year, especially as far as Big West is concerned. But it's great volleyball being played for sure.
Yeah. That first night felt like a heavyweight prize fight. I mean, it was just the stats were nearly even. Sakanoko had one hell of a night with 14 kills and 3 errors hitting 367. How about Jordan Travell? The first night having 12 kills and 0 errors. And then the second night had 4 kills with 0 errors. And I mean, that's unbelievable. The kid just had a weekend for him. And usually you're not talking a ton about middle blockers being a major factor. And obviously the second night, he wasn't as big of a factor, but the kid had a nice job of keeping their defense, blocking defense a little bit honest. But I mean, 18-16 in that first match in the 5th game, and the crowd was electric. And I think Hawaii walked away from that going, like that was a heavy fight that they walked away from victorious. And then the next night to win in 3 straight was a little bit, I guess a little bit of a letdown. I would have loved to have seen it gone 4 or 5 again, just to put a little pressure on them. I don't know if they just find a way to make a couple of adjustments, or if UC Irvine just, kind of ran out of gas. I don't know what the deal is. I didn't watch that one, unfortunately, but I'm looking at, the top 3 teams in the Big West, and man, oh man, it's that tournament time maybe won't have as much impact from the semis on, but the early rounds, somebody's going to get a little bit nervous. After that, I think everybody could feel a little bit safe. I'm not saying safe meaning they don't have to worry about winning it, but most of those teams are going to get in that large. And so maybe it won't be as pressure ridden as years before, but Hawaii looked good. They are battle ready and in hostile environments. That was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought elite on the serve and pass perspective from both sides, especially night one. Both teams about 60% in system, both serving in at about 85%. So just like an amazing display of volleyball. You know, it's where fans watching at the Bren or fans watching on ESPN Plus definitely got to enjoy and watch some really good volleyball. And I thought kind of two main things. I thought first, Travell Jordan obviously did a great job offensively, but his matchup on Trevor Clark, the middle for UC Irvine, who's been playing really, really well and like had a few swings against us that were just like freakish, almost like Merrick McHenry-esque at times. And Travell did a great job of slowing him down and getting some touches and making that a lot more difficult on that side of things. And Justin Todd did his part too in the middle there defending. And then on the flip side, you have Tread Rosenthal, who I think just keeps getting better and better as a setter. I think just a lot's continuing to click and go for him, more so with the hands. But he's been doing a really good job of running that offense, keeping it flowing nice and smoothly. And you see it with the success of Sakanoko. I think it's their connection and his evolution of being a setter and running an offense that's a little more elaborate, a little more balanced. And then his ability to go back to now Tritsky obviously was Wade earlier in the season. Has added a lot of balance. So I think Tread was kind of the difference maker there in my eyes.
Yeah, well, Tchaikovsky had 20 kills in 448 the second night. That's pretty good.
Yeah, kind of good. Yeah. Only thing that I will add is that night one with the red card incident against Rosenthal. Yeah, I actually chatted with him afterwards because if talk to him, he's a nice kid, and he said that it was a second ball. He tried to dump it, and he was closer to area 4. He's about to set that, fake set in the pin and then dump it. But he's about 4 or 5 feet off the net, so he tried to slam it, went into the net, right? So he looks down at the ball, kicks it, and he goes, as soon as it left my foot, I knew something bad was going to happen because he just was trying to kick it back up to him. But he's like, and then it hit the R1 in the face with his whistle. So, and you could tell the R1 was so hesitant to give him the red card. He's like, and then he slowly goes in the pocket and, but no one fought it, everyone knew something had to happen. So
if you know Tommy Ulibarri, who is the R1, Tommy is one of the good guys. And I'm sure he was like, I don't want to do this, but I just got to make a statement to stop all this madness because apparently there were a few others during the course of the match and he didn't want to get out of control. That's why he did it. But and Tread apologized to him. It wasn't like he didn't care.
Yeah, I thought everyone handled that situation perfectly. It was, like I thought from Tom to Tread, and it was it kind of had to happen, but definitely was not intentional and definitely was just that was bad timing.
Yeah. Well, the other piece is it's not because we were talking about Libero of the year, but I mean, seeing the play of Quentin Greenidge and Shane Aitken both nights, those guys are going horizontal in the stands and the chairs and just creating so many more opportunities, for their teams to play. And it made it so exciting. You just never knew because you had Rohr, Sakanoko, Tetrisky, Jokanovic, and Darcy banging away at the pins like, oh, it's down. And then you see this ball pop up out of nowhere. And it was because that Libero playing back between that 4-5 seam and that angle stepping in, taking the bomb. So, it was an exciting night. Night 2 obviously wasn't as good. You can just tell Hawaii is strong. They are getting better. And since Hawaii lost to UCLA, that's when Luis Sakanoko kicked it into 3 more levels. And, any team that's in their path these upcoming weeks, I believe that's Brad next weekend, it's going to have a hard time against Louis because he's going next level play right now. And, they're humming on all cylinders for sure. So, and then the other point, a lot of compliments on you guys from both sides of the crowd, especially the Hawaii crowds, because they always come up. I mean, it's so lovely and friendly. It's like, hey, thank you guys for what you're doing on the podcast. And we appreciate hearing about, talking about volleyball and our guys, and you guys do such a good job. And fair. I'm like, Jay, fair? That's just kidding.
Oh, come on.
So,
Hey,
know that you guys are.
Yeah.
We love those Hawaii fans.
I was just going to add, I mean, these guys covered a lot, and I got to watch the first one on live. So thanks, Irvine, for putting that on TV because I enjoyed watching that match. I even made Ray watch the 5th game with me, and so, just some phenomenal volleyball. What I would say almost postseason volleyball and some of the plays that you saw, and so excited to continue to see the Big West kind of grind it out. And you bring up the libero thing again. There is probably 7 or 8 liberos in the country off whatever teams that
Yeah.
you won't you don't notice when they're not good. When what I mean by that is like they're so good and they make so many great plays, it's just expected. I mean, I watch these matches and these guys are sliding in lanes and the serve receive at the level that they're doing it at, and it's just pretty impressive. So you go to the All American. I could probably name 5 or 6 that deserve to be considered for first or second team, but you probably only just see a couple, and you'll see hopefully some not honorable mention ones. And even in the MEVA, there's 3 or 4 that come to mind that are just super high level from that standpoint. And so,
Yeah. Anything else on the Hawaii Irvine? If not,
I think the guy we didn't talk a lot about who was really good was Darcy. Darcy was really, really phenomenal and super steady pretty much that entire weekend. I mean, he was really, really good for Irvine. And then obviously Dan was alluding to it, but Aiken was ridiculous.
Yeah. Fun matches. I got the wrong end of it, but again, I love seeing great volleyball, and it was electric in there. The fans are fantastic, and there's so many great people. Don Cruz in the house again, and took Saturday off to stop down to the beach event I was working with a couple of guys. So always good to see them out of the gym. And, it's just, there's such a great volleyball community that shows up. And I see it in your gym, we cruise into other gyms, and it's such a great time to chat with the people and talk about what we do.
Well, and here's the cool thing that I saw. I don't think this weekend was the first time, but recently I saw him doing it. I love when the coaches bring their kids through the handshake line. And I saw Niffin bring his young son into the handshake line and teach him how to shake the hands with all the kids. And, win, lose, or draw, it's about good sportsmanship. And I know a lot of coaches over the years have done that. And I appreciate that. I think it's really cool. It's kind of like showing your kid, bring your kid to work day, right? Let's let them do the whole thing. And I think, Niff's continuing that trend, which I applaud greatly. So.
What do you mean, like Gino when he doesn't shake hands after he loses his?
Oh,
yeah,
that's another podcast episode.
Yeah, that's
another episode at a different time.
Yeah, exactly. So good on you, Niff, and everybody else that does that stuff. I love it.
All right, we've avoided one match. I'm kind of hoping our remaining panelists will choose that one.
So obviously the Pepperdine-UCLA series ended up being a split, but I think we focus on the UCLA's first loss and Pepperdine pulling off the 5-set upset here to kind of round out this segment. But in the 5th set, Pepperdine goes down 2-6 at the start of the 5th set, and then behind Cole Hartke on a service run and Grant Lemarais on a service run and a clean ace by him into zone 1. They end up bringing it back to, I think he got back to 7-7 there. So a quick turnaround, but really it was a back and forth match with service runs on both sides. Set 1, David Decker's service run. Set 2, you got Aiden Toon, serving sub, go on a service run. Set 3, Ryan Barnett goes on a huge service run. 4th set, UCLA dominates. And then 5th set, you have Hartke and Grant go on some service runs. Then it goes back and forth, and UCLA just gets stuck in rotation 1 and a hitting error 2. Ends up making it tough. And, the Firestone Fieldhouse leaving its mark in some of its last home matches affected one play early in the 5th set that affected Pepperdine, and they were able to manage it. And then on match point, UCLA out of system set that looked like it was pretty good. Hits off some of the lights up there, plays some ping pong, and UCLA has to send a free ball and ends up being finished with a Cole Hartke kill. But Hartke saw almost half of Pepperdine's attacks. If there was a dig, they were almost setting Hartke every single time in transition, and he managed that and had some really good high level swings coming out of that. So I thought Hartke and Barnett were key for Pepperdine pulling off the 5-set upset.
Yeah.
Just
All
a
right.
key win for Pepperdine in their resume, I think. You know what I mean? Like UCLA hadn't got a loss yet, and Pepperdine maybe had a loss or two they quite didn't want. But so I think as you look at that at the end of the year, and certainly you got the tournament playing out, but yeah, key win for them. We talked about that earlier, but really important.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt UCLA as much, and if anything, it might help them as they work through some things. Not having to take a loss at a different time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was going to be my thing is, sometimes a loss is a good loss. And, the more you go undefeated throughout a year, and listen, an undefeated season is extremely special. That is not something that you just walk away with. There are numerous times where you're pushed and stretched and stressed out and trying to figure it out. But this loss, I think, to me, is a good loss for UCLA because now the monkey's off their back and they can breathe a little bit and understand, okay, it is what it is. We know that at least it went 5, right? At least UCLA didn't lay an egg and go down in 3 straight and then end up winning the next night in 3. It was kind of a battle. And I think UCLA led in just about every stat category in that first night. They led in kills, they led in hitting percentage, they led in points, they led in aces, they led in all kinds of categories. And Pepperdine found a way to win it. And, that's good for Pepperdine because now they know they're the only team that has beaten UCLA so far. And that confidence level will carry a long way. And then, I love that the Firestone is going out on a high note here. Those old light cans they used to have back in the day, they used to call those alumni. They used to name something after the alumni once in a while, like, oh, so-and-so's up there bouncing it around because you'd lose it and it'd be all over the court. But, their new place is going to be pretty nice. So sending out Firestone on a good note towards the end of this year here.
That's right, because once the season's done, demolished, then the tournament's going to be at Provo. So a legendary venue for sure.
Yeah.
On what I wanted to point out on night 2 is, obviously the national championship is going to be hosted at UCLA, and UCLA went bonkers from the service line in that win, 10 aces to 3 for Pepperdine. But Pepperdine still out hit UCLA that night. Hartke and Barnett were on fire. UCLA still able to get that win. And I'm wondering, had that 5-setter happen in Pauley,
Yeah.
because they're too good. And that's going to be a distinct advantage, assuming if UCLA can make it in the national championship tournament. So,
yeah. And Kelly had 15 kills and hit 480 on that second night. That's ridiculous.
Well, and Brad kind of hinted at this, but I wonder if UCLA even loses if that ball doesn't find that light, the one that's going to Kelly towards the pin, that he ends up having a free ball over. If they're in Pauley, I don't know that UCLA loses that match.
yeah, so many great stories about those cylinders up in Firestone Fieldhouse. And, obviously no one, if you're watching them across the nation, you don't see them, but man, it might as well be a Pachenko ball up there bouncing around and you're trying to figure out where it's going to land.
Well, Rob, you've been around long enough to know that they were actual cylinders back in the day, and they finally changed it to an upgraded light, and that's helped a little bit. But man, when it was cylinders, it was about as much of a home court advantage as you could possibly have.
Those things were like 6 feet. They were like 6 feet long, and the ball would go up in between them. It's dark up there. You couldn't even see, so you wouldn't even know where the ball was pinging around. It would start on one side of the court and end up like almost on the other sometimes. It's crazy.
Well, and if the net's 8 feet tall, the first cylinder's right around 11.
The best was coaching.
Like it was the lowest ceiling in the whole country.
Coaching with Chip McCaw, who was All-American setter from 1990 to 94 there. He would know when a ball would go up there, he would know exactly how it was going to ricochet out. He'd be like pointing and talking to our setters. He just knew every dynamic of all of them from playing in there so much. He could just predict exactly where it was going to go. It was fascinating.
Home court advantage.
So I know we are going long. We got to get to Jay's hot take questions. They're good ones this week, but let's do players of the week. Feel free to have at it. Piranha style.
I got to give it to Bryce. I think it's Wedgen, his last name for McKinney. I mean, he had 30. Yeah, he had 30 kills against us. Like that was pretty ridiculous. You know what I mean? And so he got on fire, and so I got to give him kudos. You know what I mean? So
I'm gonna go second. I'm picking unfortunately, to Brad's dismay, I'm picking Danil Hrstonovic. 28 kills and 2 errors on the weekend, hitting 480 against San Diego. That is stupid.
All right.
Yeah, I'll go last after that.
All right.
All right, I will take Cole Harkey in their first W over UCLA, the undefeated. The guy had 24 kills, hit 340 that night. I think one of the things we didn't talk about too, between Cole and Barnett, those guys had almost 40 kills between the two of them. The next closest guy was a middle who had 5 kills. So really, it was just 2 guys taking big swings, and Cole ends up with 24. He's my player of the week. The other guy that I think I'll throw on there is George Bruning, who we didn't talk much about our match, but he played pretty darn well against us for 2 nights and got them 2 Ws.
I want to throw Travell Jordan back in. Jay talked about him earlier, like just some impressive offensive numbers. Sorry, Brad, you're slow. Offensive numbers that were out there. So I just wanted to make sure he didn't get missed.
Rob, would you like to go next? Rob, you go. Rob,
second.
you got it. Go
I
ahead,
got
Rob. I'll go after you.
All right.
He's gotta
I'm going
read.
to go with a trio of Frenchmen just because I got to chat with them this weekend, but they all played really excitingly well. And that's Luis Sakanoko, Adrian Rohr, and Andrei Jokanovic. It's very unique. Andrei Jokanovic and Adrian Rohr on the French U19 or 21 team together. And just having 3 Frenchmen speaking French and not cursing was just a unique sight to see because the French are churning some good players in their federation.
You sure they're not cursing out there?
Well, I would never know because I had no speaking the French.
Well, vive la France.
All right, Brad, you're up.
Did you find one, Brad?
I don't know how he didn't get taken. He was on my list. He was the top 2 pick for me. I got Tatritsky here, 18 kills, 16 kills, and then 20 kills, night 1 and night 2.
I was going to go Cole Schobel because on night 1, out of all 30 assists that Santa Barbara had, he had all of them.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say let's pick some matches, but all of them are important here. Just watch whatever you can, support the game. It's playoff implication time, so they're all important at this point. 2 weeks remaining in the regular season. And Irvine finally beyond the halfway point of their regular season. So all the Big West teams, it's a short play, but here we go. I know we're running long. I know how quickly we can answer these, but they're great questions. And Jay's quick hits. With the new landscape of today's college game, is the gap between top programs and everyone else growing or shrinking?
I'll go last as always.
All right.
I think it's a great question. I think
growing.
I think for sure it is growing in the grand scheme of things. I think if you looked at it under a microscope, you looked at it match to match, it's a little bit less obvious. But I think if you were to look at the amount of resources and you were to stack that up where the teams match up, I think that you would find that it is continuing to expand with the teams that have the most resources.
All right. No one else.
I would add on shrinking. To that. Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Shrinking.
Yeah, it's growing because, the number of kids playing is phenomenal. So that helps out some of the disparity. But on paper, 100%. Because, there's more scholarships between what Hawaii's given, what a Loyola's given, what a Long Beach given. On paper, money-wise, it's growing. There's no way to deny that. Do you know what I mean? From that standpoint. And so, whether they're putting rev share because they're in a unique spot that they can stack on it, or they've got booster money as NIL money that are getting kids, the 4 schools right here aren't going to keep up with that. Do you know what I mean? There's just no way from that standpoint. So
I'm interested to hear Brad why he says it's shrinking, and then I'll give my answer.
I was going truly rapid fire. I got shrinking because I think you're going to see more and more upsets. There's going to be more rotating, where obviously what you guys are saying is accurate and very true. But I think from the fan perspective that aren't necessarily seeing that day to day or a part of those recruiting differences or the differences within what's available within specific programs. I think the product's going to continue being tighter and tighter with the competition that we're seeing this year.
I'm going to say in the short term, it is absolutely growing. In 3 to 5 years, you're going to see potentially a shift of it shrinking back. And I think it's for a couple of reasons. One is I think coaches are going to realize and administrations are going to realize we need to help their programs out. And I don't think it's going to necessarily come from the schools. I don't think the schools are going to unlock scholarship money. I think it's going to come from boosters who want to see their programs thrive again and be up in the conversations. But there's also some movement in the government to go back to save the Olympic programs and provide more funding. I don't know if that's going to be from the government or if it's just going to be a movement to maybe shift funds from not going all football, basketball, but to the Olympic sports. But I think in the next 3 to 5 years, the haves are going to far outweigh the have-nots, and that's just going to be the way that it is.
Yeah.
The only other thing I think that helps the shrink piece is the roster limit because of the talent.
Yeah.
At some point, some schools can only take so many guys and kids want to play. And so that allows the talent to disperse, which allows what Brad talks about. That's why I think there's such a hodgepodge between team 5 and team 20. Do you know what I mean? But I do think a couple of those teams, I don't know, they just put themselves in a position where they can have 6 guys that are making money on top of their scholarships, which is a separation piece. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Well, along the same lines, I don't know if you guys saw the April Fool's Day post that the Grand Canyon, LMU, San Diego State, and Cal Baptist are going to be getting D1 programs. And there's a good handful that didn't appreciate the post. All right, let's go. Next question. What's more dangerous, confidence after a good weekend or panic after a bad one?
Panic after a bad one.
Panic.
Panic.
I think if you win against a team that is below par, that's fake confidence going into a good week, and that could be more dangerous. But I agree with them. Panic.
All right. Is it harder now to coach volleyball or manage personalities?
Manage personalities. That everybody should be saying that. It's just you're a sports psychologist now, and it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just, but your ability to kind of. You've seen this by a lot of older coaches talk about they had to shift their coaching styles to learn how to understand how players relate. And, it wasn't like you weren't doing that 20 years ago, but it's just your awareness with what makes kids tick and social media and how you can put them in a position to be confident. You can't just go and yelling all the time. So I think you got to be able to manage that. So.
All right.
Yeah. Manage personalities. Well, I got a follow up here maybe I misunderstood it when it first went out, but I thought you were talking about years past to now. Is it harder to manage personalities or is it harder to coach the volleyball?
No, it was a generalized question. It had nothing to do with decades or eras. It was more about,
I was ready for some age hate coming at me here.
It's always decades.
No.
It's always decades with Jay. You know what I mean?
Right. That's right.
Jay coached me and he yelled at me all the time. And
No, because the game's changed, right? Yeah. Since we all started playing, at least Dan and I, when we started playing, they were still all white balls. I don't know if you two young whippersnappers understand what that means, but we couldn't see the spin of the ball when we were serve receiving. So a little bit different. But no, the game has changed. But I think I agree with all of you. It's managing personalities because these egos, you got to massage them at times and you got to stroke them at times and you got to do all these things in order to get them to perform at their best. So X's and O's are easy. The personalities are different.
Well, first off,
hasn't it always been like that?
What?
Hasn't it always been like that?
No,
I don't think so. In terms
of like the X's and O's or the X's and O's, right? Like,
no, I think back in the day, I think when kids picked a team, when they picked a school, there was a lot of factors that came into it, and coaches, I think, recruited people that fit their personalities of their profiles. Pepperdine is probably one of the greatest examples. People that went to Pepperdine were almost machine-like in the fact that they were super tall, and they were super lanky and they had all this stuff, but they were also a little bit, I guess, geared towards Marv's style, right? Marv coached a very specific way, and they all fit that. And I don't think you have to manage too much in that realm because you already know what you're getting. Whereas I think nowadays it's a little bit all over the board for some of us at times when we're trying to find that one kid or find that diamond in the rough or take a chance on this kid, whatever the case is. Now you're dealing with a lot more stuff. But social media was not prevalent back in the day, and it's changed. It's changed a lot of personalities for sure.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's changed a ton. I don't think that, Jay, you ever needed to see the spin on the ball. Back then, people were standing float serving fixed in zone 1. So there was no need to see the spin on that white ball. So you were fine.
You could block the serve. What are you talking about, Theo? I could go block the serve. It was great.
Well, and it was only coming from one side of the court. It wasn't all over the entire back line. It was just one little point in the back right. That's it.
You're giving culture shock to some of our listeners and viewers right now. What?
Yeah, Brad's like, what game are you guys talking about?
Mintonet.
I think
left
you could
is
have
right, right is wrong. Okay.
I certainly think you could have a longer conversation about that, but
Yeah.
I do think the volleyball's changed a ton, though.
Yeah, it
A
has.
ton.
Yep.
How fast and passing and how you have to block and
Yeah.
throwing and then if you're not keeping yourself up to date with how to teach the things that are going on, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
True.
so
It's true.
All right. Final question. If you could steal one trait from another sport athlete, what would it be?
You cut out. Did I? You could steal
Here, I'll read it again.
a trait from
If
another
you could steal
sport
one
athlete,
trait,
what would it be? Did you all hear that one?
Yep. So to me, it's
We're
the
mute.
ball. It's the ball tracking in baseball. So at least what I've found over the years, the guys that have a significant background in baseball train and learn passing at a much faster rate because their ability to track the ball off the bat, obviously hitting as well, I think plays into it as well. But the eyes and the visual is so valuable that baseball has that really doesn't exist in a lot of sports.
I always thought about the arm in baseball was always great too, just because you're throwing mechanics. But Theo hit a pretty good one though. So yeah,
that was good.
I was going to do a boring answer and say high jump, but now actually hearing Theo's answer, I'm going to pivot a little bit and say the ball tracking, but of a tennis player. And one of the big takeaways was tennis is the only other sport like volleyball where you're playing a ball in motion, whether it be from the serve to the dig to the forehand, backhand. So in theory and in motor learning, it's the most translatable skill into the volleyball practice.
Basketball's
Have
up
you guys
there
ever
for me.
recruited someone who was a tennis player?
Yeah, our Libero, Keegan Cook, was a tennis player. And then there was a kid at Newport Harbor, Pierce Ford, back in the day, who was like a all CIF tennis player and was a pretty darn good outside hitter.
It's awesome.
I think there's a piece with basketball, and you do this in a lot of sports, but the amount of cutting and transfer of weight that happens in basketball, because if you have kids that naturally were like basketball players and they understand transfer and weight and how to be on their instep of their feet and their toes, like those guys move a little bit better than just like the volleyball player that doesn't know how to fire real great on his feet sometimes. And so we see that.
Yeah, and just going and grabbing a rebound.
Yeah. I'm going to go with two. One is the absolute level of sustained focus that an F1 driver has to have. Because I think their ability to just maintain laser focus on this task for long periods of time, I think can really help. And then the second one is the ability of a golfer to absolutely shank at a critical moment a golf ball in a major tournament and then have to make the next shot, and it has to be good. The ability to let things go and move forward. Those are things that I think I would steal.
Those are two good ones, yeah.
Yeah.
AKA the memory of the goldfish if we were watching Ted Lasso.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, with that, Jay's Quick Hits is done, and we are done for week 14 recap. So go win.
AKA opening weekend of Big West Volleyball.
So best of luck to you, gentlemen, except for Theo, because that's who I see this week. Matador is in the Brand Thursday night. And gentlemen, finish strong. That's all I can say here, right? Final 2 weeks of the season. It's been exciting, and I know we'll have a lot to talk about come next week again. So that's Brad Rothschatter of UC San Diego, Jay Hosick of George Mason, Dan Friend of Lewis, and Theo Edwards of San Fernando State University, or CSUN.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Libero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.